Hey there, it's Dr. Jim. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'd like to talk about a very serious topic. This is one that I've been studying for quite a while, and it's a part of my interest in neurodegenerative disorders. If you've been watching my videos, you know that over the past several months, I've really taken a deeper interest in neurodegenerative disorders beyond Alzheimer's disease and have got into the research on Parkinson's, Huntington's, MS, HIV and aging, and this topic, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, an introduction. What is amyotrophic lateral sclerosis? It's ALS for short. We also call it Lou Gehrig's disease. But whatever it's called, one thing to understand is that this is an incredibly devastating and terminal neurodegenerative disease that has a very predictable clinical course. It's also known as a motor neuron disease as well, as a progressive neuromuscular disease, because it attacks nerve cells and pathways in the brain as well as the spinal cord. Motor neurons from the brain to the spinal cord connect and communicate with one another. And then they also communicate from the spinal cord to a muscle or a gland somewhere in the body. But what happens is when a neuron dies, a motor neuron, when it dies, the brain can no longer start or stop muscle control or muscle movement. Unfortunately, there is no cure for ALS, and people diagnosed with it gradually lose the ability to move, and they will eventually be overtaken by complete paralysis. To me, this is one of the saddest, most terrifying, and devastating diseases we know of. There are around 20,000 Americans who currently have ALS, and every year we are seeing about 6,000 new cases. Symptoms begin between the ages anywhere between 40 to 70, but I've read of cases where ALS was diagnosed much sooner than 40 and after the age of 70. But 40 to 70 appears to be the group of ages that ALS attacks the most. Most individuals with ALS will survive for only a short period of time. The average is 3 to 5 years after the diagnosis is confirmed. So unfortunately, people do die quickly. Around 10% of people with ALS will survive for 10 years or slightly more. And it depends upon who you talk to. This is a difficult thing to say, but you know what I mean when I say it, that sometimes death is a blessing. When people are really, really suffering from cancer or another neurodegenerative disease like MS, Parkinson's, Huntington's. We might be able to say the same thing for people with ALS. The suffering is intense, and you generally eventually become trapped in your body. So it looks like ALS occurs more in women than it does in men. One type of ALS is when there are no known causes whatsoever, and this is called sporadic ALS, and it accounts for between 90 to 95% of all cases. The other type, though, is called familial, which means genetic, and it's inherited, and accounts for between 5 to 10% of all cases. Now, symptoms. The symptoms are interesting because they start out very, very quietly. The person in the early stages may become aware that one of their hands is now becoming clumsy. So I might have a little difficulty writing or taking a key and unlocking a lock. And I may think to myself, what's wrong with my hand? Very early on. Some people, though, will experience weakness in their legs, which can cause tripping, stumbling, falling, getting hurt. ALS is usually present for some time before anybody knows what's going on and before any symptoms present themselves and the person becomes aware that they have a problem. Generalized fatigue is another problem that can develop in early stages of the disease. Signs begin in the hands and feet, and then they move to the center of the body, and generally symptoms will occur just on one side of the body, but then eventually will affect both sides. So ALS is a disease where symptoms don't become better. They only become progressively worse. The person can experience stiffness in their joints and muscles, occasional jerking movements of legs and arms. There will be some twitching, and you may have seen this on a commercial. Some people will experience the pseudo-bulbar effect, which is a condition characterized by uncontrollable laughter, uncontrollable crying. There are medications for it that may or may not be effective. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I wanted to give you a good introduction to ALS. So my name is Dr. Jim. Thank you for stopping by. This has been Amyotrophic Lateral Sclerosis, an introduction.